It was such a good experience, but it was that same thing though, like, you know, just that raw, like the stories that I grew up with and feeling like this is so insane that this experience I had growing up across the street from a crack house and in the heroin, crack, HIV AIDS epidemic in the Lower East Side during police riots and you know, change the atmosphere with homeless and clearing out the parks, like so much transition in New York, and to have experienced so much of it firsthand and then read scripts and have an opportunity to tell those stories has been so powerful and revealing and special, because it's in many ways, from where I come, our stories aren't celebrated, and they're not ones that are supposed to be amplified in that way and resonate in that way and be told in that way. And something like Rent was exactly that. It's like going, you're gonna make a powerful story about the people I grew up with, and it's okay that they're poor, and that they're homeless, and that they're squatters, and that they're transgendered, and that they're, you know, drug addicts, and that they're not perfect, but that there's still so much meaning to be derived from it. I'm just, my only regret for that entire project was that I never got to meet Jonathan Larson, because I would have really loved to have known the man who created that work.
Yeah.
Very much so. They're strange bees, you know, and you know, I very much, you know, I grew up in a squat in the Lower East Side, which was an abandoned building. We moved in, it didn't have any water, heat, or electricity. My family's very tenacious, and so I just grew up with that idea. I grew up around a lot of advocates and activists and starving artists. That's why I even had the audacity to audition for Rent, even though 6 out of the 8 originals in the cast and the only other newbie in it had gone to Juilliard.
You were phenomenal.
I was like, I sing in my shower.
You were phenomenal in it.
I played someone I really knew. You know, that was the community I grew up in. That was literally my life. Like, I remember being so nervous and scared going into that audition, because I was like, I really have no right to be coming in here in the technical sort of realm, but this is my life. Like, I feel so connected to this, and I'd feel really wrong if I didn't try, because I know how important this is. I have that, I feel like I'm doing that, I'm on set and I'm having this like I'm in it moment, and they're like going, no, keep going, and you're like, oh wait, this is really happening. This is actually my life now. This is amazing, how remarkable, what a gift, truly. I grew up around really very talented people who had really normal jobs and who you would never know could do the things that they could do. You know, like, I'm constantly amazed by people and the gifts that they find in themselves and their strengths and their passions and what kind of lights them up and gets them excited, and it's just, go do that, you know. And I've been around so many people who had that in multiple facets, you know. And, you know, now we're in a place, especially what gets me so excited is, you know, with both Latino and other organizations and things that I work with, and just young people in general, is that these, you know, millennials or whatever term you're using for the young people, I remember being myself, just completely open to everything. And there's not this idea of, okay, I'll pick one cause, or I'll, you know, go down one avenue that I'll try to pursue for success. It's going, I sing and I dance and I write and I'm a poet and I'm also really good at math and I love science and I want to be a doctor and a teacher and I also want to be a volunteer and I want to do a clothing line, and sure, sure, like why not? Like, I just think that that's so remarkable, people tapping into, and obviously you have to excel at something or not, you know, because plenty of people who don't. But I think that that's a beautiful thing to just go out there and engage. And that's the one thing I definitely grew up around, to people with all different levels of success or non, just really being engaged and showing up every day in whatever capacity that they could. And I'm really inspired by that, and I feel the need to do that as much as possible and appreciate the journey along the way. Yeah. And then I remember when we filmed it, after it was done, they added an extra scene and I had to go back into it. And it was so hard. I remember the next day after I was in the shower washing my face and I was like grimacing, and I realized I'd been frowning for 24 hours. Like, this person who just had collapsed into herself, she refused to look in the mirror and admit what she had done and the choices she had made. And I felt such compassion for her, and it was so hard. I just was so grateful, again, because it was just like I grew up in New York in the Lower East Side during this epidemic. My uncle was a really bad heroin addict and did not end up raising his children. He was in a great band, so he ended up just falling apart. Madonna used to be their go-go dancer, I mean, super promising, and everything went down. And I've had that so close within my own family to see that, and then to portray this character and get an insight into him in a different way than I'd had before, because I'd always just been like, oh, what a jerk. He'd done these drugs, and now he was not there for his children, and he was not showing up for his wife, and I helped to raise their kids and babysat all the time and was there for his wife, and had to grow up myself in a big way because I was having these adult conversations. And I remember just having such a perspective on it. And it's just so interesting how life can do that for you. You have so many examples, and you're like, this is fact, this is what is real, this is the way to look at this. And then I play this character in this thing that was so, I wasn't even thinking about, and it suddenly just is, this challenge that comes up to your face, and you realize, oh my God, how difficult that is for every one of us to admit when we're wrong, just in basic little things. Like, no, I put it there versus over there. Like simple little things that we refuse to admit to, let alone making catastrophic choices that make it really hard to look in the mirror, and where it's easier for you to get your fix than for you to address your problems. And I just remember just feeling really amazed at how special a gift it is, because I wasn't expecting to go into acting, which is, I know this is a roundabout way getting back to your question. I wasn't expecting to go into acting, but it found me, and it's been such an education, and it makes me appreciate so much in life, because someone could throw a rock at my head, and everything that I hold to be dear and true to myself and my being, and just be gone. You know, like it just, a second, you know, suddenly I'm just drooling on myself. It's really, we're so fragile, we're so vulnerable. And to have that opportunity to recognize that as my job, that's my job, is to take on trying on other people, putting myself into other people's shoes, and appreciating every day when I go back into my own world, has just been remarkable. And I hope that that's what I get to share with other people. No, it's interesting being an actor, because you are subject to so much of what's happening. You know, the script has to be written, the director has to be attached, the money has to be there. I mean, you can come in at different levels of it, and I've definitely shown up at different parts of projects and either helped to fundraise or do whatever for it. But you know, it still has to, it's an ensemble experience. It's really, you work with everyone, and I think that's one of the reasons why I've gotten more into producing, and I'm interested more in writing and developing more, just because it's hard to sit around and kind of wait to tell a story, because you're waiting for all the other parts to fit in. Sometimes you have to help to manifest that story. You know, I was always encouraged since I was really little, that even as a young person, that passion and that wanting to help or be compassionate or empathetic or generous, that was a good thing, and something to kind of, not just like, hey, be quiet and kids are supposed to be seen, not heard, but like participate. Well, what does that look like to you? And oh, so you see a problem here, how do you want to fix it? Well, let's go and do that. Let's go do something. Let's hand out posters today. You know, like what an amazing thing that is, and I still feel that encouraged, and that's what makes me very excited, even more so, and starting something like the All of Us Foundation, because it's like finally like what I was actually, you know, going back to what my mom, taking her after my grandmother died, I took her to Sierra Leone. She'd always wanted to go to Africa, and I took her to Sierra Leone. And it was a really impactful experience, because she'd lost her mom. And that's a real deal, because my grandmother passed, she had a blood clot. It wasn't like she was ill. She was a very vivacious, tremendous woman, and suddenly just gone. And we're all very sorry, but at the same time, we're suddenly in this place where they had experienced a terrible civil war. And you're talking to anyone there pretty much, and they're going, oh, I'm so sorry about your mom. My whole family was butchered, and I spent years living in the bush, and this is my brother, but we met there and we took care of each other, but we're brothers now because we don't have any other family. And they're not saying it asking for any sympathy, and they're not challenging what they've, you know, it's not comparing stress or it's just reality. It's just going, that happened, it happened, and it sucks, and I'm sorry, and so now what are we gonna do? And just being in that growth. And I remember it was such an amazing experience for my mom, because there she was, and she was in this serious mourning, and all of a sudden she was overseeing construction. She was working at all the different organizations that I work at. So she was working at Well Body Alliance and putting in from night, I think they had like 10 years worth of paperwork they hadn't put online, that she put online and computerized. And, she was just working at the HIV/AIDS clinic, and she's just amazing. She used to work at Housing Works. She used to work at Women's Inc. here in San Francisco. Like, I grew up with her as an activist and an advocate. So it just made, like, suddenly it all came to fruition. She felt so empowered. My mom was like, all of these years of experience that seems so fractured and all over the place actually comes together in a meaningful way. And it reminds me a lot of what Steve Jobs said. It's like you're moving along in your life, and there's all these different dots. And if you stop sometimes in the middle of it and you try to connect them, it's just jumbled. It doesn't make any sense. But when you keep it moving, eventually you look back and you connect those dots, and there's a really phenomenal picture that is created. And it might seem like those things are really all off base, but it does come together at some point. And I feel really grateful with where all the work that I've done with all these different organizations, that I didn't listen to people and they said, you just got to pick one. Because now we're at this place where it's not just something that people do on the side, and these causes that people had. And there were big people, Harry Belafonte and Elizabeth Taylor with AmFAR. There were people who had these big, huge organizations, but in general, it still kind of was siloed. Yeah. And a lot of people did their work and giving as a side thing. And now it's become something that's just a normal part of everybody's work and day. And it's not like you have to pick one thing, but that you can do all of it. Yeah. And I'm really excited about that, because I feel in that same place with my mom, where it's like all of these organizations, all of these things, all these, Amnesty International, this and that. And like, why do I know so much about, rape kits that are not being looked into? And why do I know so much about fistula and dysentery and all of from the different organizations that I've worked with? Why do I know so much about passing out needles and how important, why do I know so much about from all these different organizations that I've worked with? What do I know about? Because I'm supposed to have the All of Us Foundation. Because I was supposed to get to this place where I can start connecting, because what I just really see is happening is that now we're past this point where it's a trendy thing to have an organization. Right. It's actually a given. And it's you doing misrepresentation and then going, but that's not where I'm stopping. Right, right. This has more of a life beyond that. It's going to be the mask we live in, and going, no, we're looking at boys too. Mm-hmm. Don't get all crazy. This is important. We got to look at all of it. Yeah. And let's be thoughtful about, if you're really meaning to take care of these issues, let's step back and look at all the different working parts with it, and really see how it goes. Because you can't just be a feminist and be a woman. Right. Men are feminists too. You can't be just a humanist. You can't just be about pets or this, that. Like, everybody has their individual thing, but as a whole, like, all of it is interrelated. And I just feel like I was that champion for my mom for so many years, for being that person of just like taking it on. And now I just feel really excited that 20 years into my acting, I've had incredible experiences that are selfish and awesome and personal and private. I won't tell you any of the dirt. Because I got stories. But also along the way, I've done some really, awesome things with great organizations. And it's like, now it's time to take it to the next level. If I were to say, really, who really loves to work, there's something really meaningful when you earn something and you work for it, and the pride that you have in that. And that's just been something that I've really enjoyed in many ways with the organizations that I've worked with, but it's so hard when the one part that you're really capable of doing is just fundraising. Yeah. And this has been something different. And it's been amazing, because my friend who's there, she quit Bottega Veneta, she moved to Uganda, she's now living in Ghana with her family out there, and we're looking at, our aunties in the market there, and there's no difference between them and us except for opportunity. And my great-grandmother was a seamstress. I feel like I'm working with my roots, and I'm giving those types of people a voice and and amplifying it. And it's been amazing. And we've been supporting each other as women, going, oh, look at you. We're like entrepreneurs and business women now in a different way. And it feels so exciting, 20 years in acting and doing all this other stuff, to do something new again. Love it. And like push again. And that's, you can't, I say that all the time, like, I'm not going to be that person who's played it safe on my tune. I'm always going to act. I love it. I just finished seeing Cicely Tyson, and doing a trip to Bountiful twice, and this woman who's 90 and never missed a show and is absolutely amazing and lucid and incredible, and it just makes me feel so grateful that I have a job, despite what they say in the press. Even as I wrinkle in age, I will actually still be able to do what I do. I love it. And that's not to be said for every, career choice. So I'm so grateful for that. And I know it's going to be there. And I think I just am ready to kind of take something else on. And so for me, Studio 189 is really important. Who would have, you can't plan Ebola into your business plan to start a company in West Africa, and then all of a sudden Ebola strikes is like, okay. Oh. So this is exactly the reason why we're here and why we're doing what we're doing, because if you are selling your goods in your market and no one is going to the market because they're afraid of getting a disease, then you are starving. And so it's really important that we do what we're doing and sell what you have that you're making there over here, and give you that access, that everybody, that most of us are tapping into. People have a cell phone now and they're able to start a business, and it's just giving that technological boost, that opportunity to people who are they're already doing great things, they're already making beautiful things, but how can we leverage that in a better way? So for me, I'm all about that. I'm even more engaged in that now, especially because of the situation on the ground, and it was necessary before we started. It's even that much more so. And the All of Us Foundation, I just started that, but for me that gets me really excited, because specifically what we want to do is help organizations work collaboratively with each other. I think too often we see a lot of these organizations, they're fighting for the same little piece of money, right, and they're undermining each other, and both of those causes are important. You need to stop child sex trafficking, and you need to do something about that dam, and you need to do something about those trees, and you need to do something about the adult literacy. So why are you all fighting for that same little pool of money and undermining each other? Like, it's horrible to see that. And there's a way to manifest something different and have the monies that do get raised actually go through all of your organizations and be that much more empowering. So that's what I want to do, and that's what I'm really, the education that I've had of being able to work with such remarkable people like yourself, and the things that you're doing on so many different levels, if we can start connecting those dots for people, so they're not reinventing the wheel, they're not having to jump through so many hoops to raise funds. If I can tap into resources and fundings and give people an experience that's good for giving and doing, then that's my legacy that I'd like to leave.